Some of the hardest people I've ever met usually do not get promoted in a timely manner. These are people that have stayed late, they consistently hit deadlines, they have a master's degree, and yet for some reason they get passed over. Because honestly, if school prepared you for the work world, we wouldn't have this issue. So today I want to talk about why school never taught you about your career and what to do and how to navigate it. I also want to talk about what school didn't prepare you for and the real skills that are required to be successful in this space. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Ruben. I work in the talent space and I spend a large part of my day talking to people like yourself, whether you're on the job market, you currently have a job and you're looking to get promoted, or you're a leader doing some of the hiring. And I spent many years just watching different shapes of the career. I've seen people get demoted. I've seen people get promoted. I've seen people get promoted and skip a level. And what's great is that your career isn't just capped on your intelligence. Like you don't need to get to a certain point and get a PhD. It's all about behavior and just the humanness of it. And I'll explain what that means. The lie we were sold about our career. We've been taught, especially as millennials, and I think it's starting to continue, and people are starting to see it more and more with the rise of AI, is that degrees do not equal competence. See, I have a lot of friends that have master's degrees. I work with people who have very high level degrees, and I can go toe to toe with them. Why? I just read a lot of books of interest, and I just hang around those people. Going back to degrees, we were taught, at least in the millennials, I'm pretty sure it's still happening with Gen Z and beyond, work hard, get good grades, earn the degree, get the job, you'll be happily ever after. But unfortunately, most workplaces do not reward effort, right? They reward how much impact you make, how much they trust you, and how reliable you are. When you went to school, a degree just proves that you can follow rules. And that's not what it takes to be successful, especially if you here in the Bay Area. Silicon Valley was built on people who just kind of took another route, took risk, and just saw things differently, even when people told them, like, that's a stupid idea. And then you get things like Facebook. See, because what school doesn't teach you is a few things that really matter when it comes to the workplace. And that's regulating your emotions, taking great feedback and giving it well, communicating and being able to be under pressure, making ethical decisions, and working well with people you don't like working with. Because let's be real, if you're in a village of 150 people, currently organizations, and some of them are bigger than that, but let's use Dunbar's number as an example, you're not going to like all 150 people. You're not going to get along with every single one of them. That's just normal. That is totally fine. And see, what I've seen, and this happened to me, is that most people don't get stuck because they lack those skills, but they get stuck because they've struggled with feedback. They created tension without realizing they created tensions, and they don't know how they've been perceived. They get defensive. These are all examples. For me, it was mostly because I didn't know how I got perceived at once upon a time until someone told me, like, hey, you do these things. You probably don't realize it, but you make these weird jokes and people feel uncomfortable. That happened to me once upon a time, way back in the day. Obviously, I took that feedback. um, but it's really about self-awareness. Sometimes you do not know. And that's why feedback is so important. Because as you move through your career, busyness is not seen as a good thing. When you're first starting as an entry level person, let's say in a sales, I always use sales as an example. In sales, in the beginning, you better look busy. If you're a sales development rep, you better be putting in the work, putting in the numbers, and showcasing you can do it. Over time, as you grow in that career, yes, you stay busy, but you get better, you get more efficient, you get referrals, you know more people, and it gets easier to do the job. So you don't have to necessarily look busy. You can do the job very well without sometimes even doing a 40-hour work week. And chapter 3, just on emotional regulation, right? I once had a candidate, this was a few months ago actually, and this candidate looked incredible on paper. He was great for the role, he had a strong resume, he had solid experience, and I was putting him along the process. But as I was going through the process, one of the hiring members or on the hiring team in the panel was like, hey, I actually know this person. I used to work with them at X company. And She was like, I don't want to add in any bias, but at the previous job, this person really struggled to regulate their emotions under stress. And that emotion was anger, especially when you're dealing with a frontline salesperson. I learned that this person escalated conflict and they were not great at receiving feedback. But every time they receive feedback, they would get very defensive, they would shut down. And they eroded trust and actually were let go from that position. And they were not bad at the job. Again, they had a great resume, but they were just bad because they were just difficult. And do you like to be around a family member that's difficult? Well, you spend more time with your coworkers than you do sometimes with your family. I'm talking about like your overarching family, not maybe the family that lives at home with you. And if you're labeled difficult, if you get that label, it's really hard to get back from that. And that's sometimes a label people put on you without even thinking. It's just unconscious, and they put that on you because you probably gave them a hard time once upon a time, and you're very defensive with things like that. It's good to be challenging and challenge certain ideas and decisions because it's like, well, I think that we shouldn't do this because of X. And if you can relate it back to the business, you'll actually seen as very competent, especially if it's a good idea. So emotional regulation is probably one of the more important ones. I've spoken about it in a previous video. Now, I'd like to talk about another idea is how people, again, look really good on paper, super intelligent, super smart when you talk to them, but they fail in other aspects that are the human side. So this was another for a different role that I was working on. I had a candidate I work with, again, super smart. Spoke to him. He showed up very ambitiously. He was very sharp. He understood sales cycles, all these things. And right before I was about to move him, um, someone apparently he had reached out to someone, and that person was like, "Hey, actually, I used to like manage this person's manager once upon a time." And they crossed a few ethical lines, and unfortunately we had to let this person go because they lied a lot. I mean, he looked great. I had a great conversation with him. I was like, this guy can do the job like with his eyes closed pretty much. Due to this, I had to let him go because he was just ethically not a great hire. He would cause more problems than do well. So again, had to let him go. And having good results can buy someone's time and working at a company, but it doesn't buy them from doing bad things. So, I think careers can end really fast from ethical lapses than skill gaps. Trust is a big aspect of work and any aspect of life, really. And once trust is broken, what happens? What happens? It's nearly impossible to build back up. It's really hard. It's really hard to rebuild trust once you have broken it with someone. If you're in school right now, here are a few things that can help you in getting prepared for your career. What I would say is that one, you need to be coachable and not have a huge ego, not be defensive. Ask appropriate questions, of course, to better understand if you need to when you receive feedback, but do not get defensive. Regulate your emotions. Another thing is like active listening. You're listening, you're not waiting to talk, you're actually listening to what the person says. And once they're done, repeat back to them what they said so you make sure you got it correctly and write it down. I don't know why people don't write things down. They can handle criticism and tough feedback without spiraling, getting defensive, getting upset. Unfortunately, in order to grow, you make mistakes and somebody has to give you feedback on those mistakes. Trust me, I still get feedback and it's still really hard for me, but I regulate it, I sit with it for a little bit, and I just start actioning it. Emotion is just energy emotion. So you have to move it through, you have to take action to move forward. And really take responsibility without making excuses. Like, hold yourself accountable. Jocko Willink has a great book, Extreme Ownership. It's like taking ownership of the mistakes you made, move forward. When you start getting defensive, people do not like that. People just don't. They'll see you as incompetent. So you need to say, hey, I'm sorry I made that mistake. This is what I'm going to do better next time. That conversation will be done in less than 5 minutes. Trust me, I've been working on that for the last 8 years of my career. And before that, I used to be very defensive, actually. But I was also in my 20s. I didn't know better. But I learned. Those are just a few things. It's a quick video, so I just wanted to provide you with that. If you want to know more, feel free to shoot questions in the comment. Happy to answer them. Shoot me an email. Happy to respond to those as well. And I hope you have a great week. See you next week.